Welcome to Minute Mirror Diplomacy. This is Zain Khan. Today we have the privilege of speaking with Kyle Inan, a distinguished geopolitical analyst based in Turkey. Mr. Inan will help us understand the key issues shaping the upcoming US-American elections. Welcome to our show, Kyle Inan. This is Zain Khan. It's such a pleasure having you.
Likewise, Zen. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
Kyle, there are three major subjects that are being debated in the upcoming US elections. First is the economy, second is foreign policy, and most importantly, culture wars that are currently going on in the United States. These are the major subjects of debate in the upcoming US elections. But let's get to the economy. I want to get to my first question. How do you assess President Biden's economic policies and their impacts on voters' perception on economic stability?
Sure. Thank you for allowing me to at least present the economic situation in the U.S. And as you know, America happens to be the pioneer and all over the world, and the whole economic sphere is looking up to America to understand what's going to happen in the next few years. So, with regards to the election coming up and with what President Biden has offered, the current administration came up with the Build Back Better plan, the BBB. I think a $12 trillion plan was announced, but we haven't yet seen anything with regards to the infrastructure, meaning the major revamping of highways, railroads, major airports, and that hasn't been done so far. But there's the promise there. When President Biden took office, that was one of the first promises there. And then, as I recall, there was the American Rescue Act as well. That included raising the tax for the wealthy to 39.6%. On top of that, extending healthcare. Well, that was a major issue, making healthcare prescriptions more affordable for regular everyday Americans. Well, due to the inflation, and thanks to the pandemic, not much of that target hit its point, but it's getting there slowly. But it's going to take some time.
I want to get to a very important question. With concerns over inflation and the cost of living dominating public discourse, how might these economic anxieties shape voter sentiment and influence their decision-making in the upcoming elections?
Okay, sure. So here's the thing. Off the top of my head and off the cuff, I might just state that thanks to the depoliticization, or thanks to major inflation levels in America, thanks to the macroeconomic indicators, following the pandemic, people are having a hard time keeping up with politics, with the current political domain. So people are trying to figure out what they're going to put on table for the next day, the next week, or the next month, which rightfully so. And it wouldn't be such an overstatement to say that around 60 to 65% of American people cannot foot another extra $400 bill. So that's a given. Yeah, I understand the unemployment rate is decreasing supposedly, but we need to take the major inflation levels to that, meaning the national debt level of America to its GDP ratio is extremely high. It's $29 trillion to something. It's extremely high. There's no exaggeration here. It's 200% over what it should be. Which is putting more and more of a burden on everyday Americans' shoulders. So it's not easy to bring it back down to what it was before, because the debt is so high with its interest. And let me be clear here: the debt is owed to foreign investors, banks, financial institutions. So that needs to be paid in due time. But again, the debt amount is volume-wise, it's spiraling up and up. So it won't be easy to bring it back down. So the cost of everything for everyday households is also increasing per item. Whenever everyday Americans go for shopping, they are shocked by the exorbitant prices that is increasing day by day. So this is going to keep increasing, and I'll let the viewers know that a major portion of this is related to the Nord Stream 2 destruction process, if I may clearly say so.
Kyle, I want to get to a very important foreign policy question. How might the recent international conflicts, such as the Israel-Gaza war and the US support for Ukraine against Russia, shape the voter perceptions of foreign policy leadership and national security competence?
So as I've previously stated, and as I should say, that people are losing interest in politics because people are not seeing anything on the ground. And I should say that specifically to the United Nations. Whatever all those things, as I should call them, atrocities happening in Gaza is nothing that should be taken lightly. The whole world is watching, so it's easy to yeah, be quick to judge, but we're actually seeing what's happening on the ground, and people are not in favor of letting things happen by themselves. But the international community should at least intervene and start a peacekeeping mission there. But so far, nothing has been done, and I'm really boggled by how UN peacekeeping forces are not intervening there at this so far into this conflict there. So that's one. With regards to the Russia and Ukraine situation, that's been prolonged for such a long time. I think it's in its second year, maybe even more. The international community has lost its interest because they're probably believing that they're not getting accurate information as to what's happening on the ground, and rightfully so. Russia is slowly moving forward against the belief that Ukraine is somehow winning. Unfortunately, that is the case. People tend to believe that the money coming from the Western Hemisphere is supposed to keep Ukraine going for some time, but I don't think that's the belief anymore. I think we should really watch closely what Russia is going to do within the next 2 to 5 years, which is going to be very intriguing.
Kyle, with the ongoing debates over U.S. involvement in global conflicts and alliances, what political risks and opportunities do you see for both the Democrats and the Republican parties in addressing foreign policy concerns?
Sure. And rightfully so, I'll say this then. When it came to foreign policy, both the administrations, both the previous and the current administration, has been a little slow in taking action. Well, in some effect, there was no action at all. I'm referring to with regards to Libya, to Afghanistan, to Iraq, and some of the other places that American troops were present. And one other thing I like to mention is, you can't be the world is based in international trade. So you can't be increasing trades or tariffs against the other side that you don't want to trade with. But you have to do that trade because millions of lives depend on it. Millions of lives business depend on it. And the whole world trade volume flows through China and US. And whenever there's a conflict in between, then all the parties in the middle and down there, they get squashed. So I'm talking about a $600 billion trade deal, and it's close to $1 trillion, maybe a little more. So as we would recall, President Trump increased tariffs on a number of items coming in from China, and China did the same to US. So whenever this is the case, then the international trade is not so favorable. Now, with regards to foreign policy, actually, foreign policy is closely following what's happening with the international trade. So whenever the numbers get lower, people lose interest in trying to make business, but then things turn sour, and then they resort to military. They tend to resort to military action, which is one of the last things that the world needs right now. So we should be more encouraging using diplomacy overall. I think the current administration is more lenient when it comes to foreign policy, especially keeping their good relations with Europe and the rest of the world. But again, going back to the Ukraine-Russia issue, this is going to force many people's hands because the Europe does not right now have the current LNG infrastructure to process that natural gas, which it supposedly needs. And then Europe should really watch out for its energy infrastructure in the next 5 to 10 years.
Kyle, some of our viewers who might have an eye on U.S. politics know that the Democratic leadership have highlighted Republican disagreements on abortion rights as a key election issue. How significant do you believe this topic will be in influencing voter choices, given recent Supreme Court rulings and a state-level ban on abortion? And we both know that abortion is a big debate when it comes to the United States cultural wars.
Mm-hmm. I think, the Democratic side has a major push on this, the abortion issue, and rightfully so. But when we look at this specific issue from a bigger standpoint, we see that there are conflicting sides, and this is a very controversial issue, Zain. So plus we need to take into factor in the religion side of things into this abortion issue as well, because there's a lot of belief that people should have the right to do whatever they want whenever the baby is conceived or is preconceived. And there's that part that abortion seems to be a normal thing for some people. So I think people should really approach this as rational as possible. And look, this shouldn't even become a political topic, because it's being overused, and we're seeing that all around newspapers and everywhere in the digital platforms. And I think we should focus on how we can make future our country a better place, especially the world itself.
Now, Kyle, we both know that democracy and elections both have become a point of debate when it comes to the current U.S. elections, the upcoming U.S. elections. As democracy becomes a central issue in the political discourse, how do you see it shaping the narratives of both the Democratic and Republican candidates in the upcoming elections? How might allegations of electoral fraud impact voter confidence in the electoral process and the legitimacy of election outcomes, particularly in the light of former President Trump's claims?
Very good question, Zain, and thank you so much. I'm going to say this. Well, in the previous elections, there was the in-ballot voting and then the digital voting side, and people were dubious about the digital voting side because they believed, things have been thwarted to a point where it would have impacted the election outcome, the results. So the election cycle itself is becoming more and more of an issue. And let me say this just outright, it shouldn't be. It's a very simple process where people go and vote, and whatever the outcome is, we should accept. That's the basic principle of a democracy. So I believe this is breaking down the functioning pillars of society, executive side, legislative side, the enforcement side. So I think we should be more delicate with bringing balance to the democracy issue. And then, yes, there's more political participation in US that is seeming to be becoming more democratized. But when you go out there and ask people in regular interviews, people are not feeling that. So whatever is happening in the political circles must also have some reflection on the ground in the streets as well, in people's minds and opinions as well. And that's the most important thing. People thinking, oh, I have a right to do something. And I'm not saying people should be entitled to things that they're not entitled to, but at least know that democracy is the most civilized cover that people had for eons, and that should continue to be so as a basic pillar to keep society in check. And it's one of the most important things that we have as the Western world.
Thank you so much, Kyle Inan, for sharing your valuable insights into these critical issues shaping the upcoming American elections. Your expertise sheds light upon the complexities of issues shaping the upcoming U.S. elections.
Thank you. A pleasure to be on your show, Zain. Thank you very much.
This was Kyle Inan, a geopolitical analyst based in Turkey. We were talking about the upcoming U.S. elections. Until the next episode of Minute Mirror Diplomacy, this is Zain Khan. Take care. Assalamu alaikum. Goodbye.